Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for being with us today. I'm Rick Journey, Service Director of Communications in the Office of Public Information for the City of Birmingham under Mayor Woodfin. I appreciate all of our media being here. Just to remind everybody, the media who is on the line right now for Q&A, we will have prepared comments from 6 individuals first. After those prepared comments, we will have a time for Q&A. And just where people aren't climbing over each other on the audio on the line, we will. I'll just call each of you out. If we fail to call your name, we'll give you time at the very end to make sure we've covered everybody. Thank you very much for being with us. And with that, we will begin. And I will turn this over to Mayor Woodfin. Mayor Woodfin. Thanks, Rick.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And I would like to thank each of you all for joining us for today's announcement. As we work to enhance our existing partnerships through joint law enforcement to reduce gun violence in Birmingham. I want to remind everybody that this is not about numbers or stats. This is about saving lives. There's a considerable amount of anger and sadness as well as concern in our community. And so we want to address that from a law enforcement perspective today. We all know why we're here. And even as we've made progress in lowering all other forms of crime, gun violence in our community still hovers at a rate that is unacceptable. And so today, as we are announcing a cooperative effort comprised of our city, county, and federal partners focused on intensifying our partnership to tackle gun violence. From the city of Birmingham, the City Council's Public Safety Committee Chairman, Hunter Williams, the Birmingham Police Department Chief Patrick Smith, as well as other representatives from the city that include Birmingham Housing Authority, as well as Judge Sparks. From Jefferson County, our District Attorney, Danny Carr, as well as our Jefferson County Sheriff, Sheriff Mark Petway, and our federal partners, led by our United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Prem Escalona. This group and this effort constitutes a unique law enforcement partnership that I believe is necessary to tackle gun violence. Together, we are committed to coordination that will further identify and remove silos that can disrupt our common goal, an all-hands-on-deck effort to reduce gun violence. The goal is very clear. If you carry a gun in Birmingham, intend to do harm, or have already committed a violent crime, we'll find you and you're going to sit down. And if you haven't committed a crime but are illegally carrying a gun, we'll give you a clear choice. Either work with us to get the help you need to put the gun down, or you're going to sit down too. Now, we know we can't arrest our way out of our gun crisis. That is why we formed the Office of Peace and Policy and funded conflict resolution and prevention measures. I believe we can level up on prevention measures with the support of the $148 million that we'll be receiving from Washington as part of our ongoing effort and recovery plan. We'll commit a considerable amount of resources to ongoing community safety programming, expanding our programming to target our returning citizens with the highest likelihood of committing violent crime, and launching a new community-based first responder program so that our BPD officers can focus on getting guns off our streets. The truth is, we can't do this work alone. And so today I stand with our partners at Jefferson County and our federal partners here in Birmingham and in Washington, because our gun violence challenges will require an all hands on deck. Now, the scope of this violent crime response will include the following: outlining the work of our community partners in executing our community safety programming, led by our Office of Peace and Policy, incorporating place-based strategies for predicting, intervening in, and responding to gun crimes with a particular focus on places where incidents of gun crime have been the highest in our community. Modeling gun task force collaborative partnerships in other cities where federal, state, and local law enforcement partners focus on information sharing and identifying trends in gun trafficking to keep guns off of our streets. Outlining how the work of the partners here today will be supported by our state-of-the-art real-time crime center and incorporating Crime Center into the work of this partnership. In addition to that, supporting the implementation of a community safety plan for our 14 Birmingham Housing Authority properties and integrating this safety plan into our broader community safety strategy to ensure that our public housing residents are safe. Working closely with our city and juvenile gun courts, the district attorney, and our federal prosecutors to swiftly prosecute all gun crimes in Birmingham to the maximum level. But I think there are a couple other things we have to do. One is protect our witnesses that come forward to help us prosecute gun crimes, and work with our federal partners to identify additional resources from the Department of Justice for expanding our capacity to holistically tackle gun crime through both community-based and awareness and enforcement strategies. This isn't work that the city can do alone. I think you've heard me say that a minute ago. Today's announcement represents a comprehensive community-based approach that leverages both law enforcement community and our community service providers to holistically tackle a gun crisis that has gripped our community for far too long. We'll now hear from the following partners in this order. Police Chief Patrick Smith, our Sheriff Petway, District Attorney Danny Carr, U.S. Attorney Prem Escalona, and Counselor Hunter Williams, who is the Chairman of Public Safety. Thank you.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank all of you for coming out today, and I would like to thank those who are watching. As we stand here today, we're standing here with one voice, and that's one goal. One goal of tackling a problem that has plagued communities all across the nation, and that's the issue of gun violence. Gun violence has touched many in our communities, all of the communities we serve. We've seen brazen acts of gun violence committed in private residences as well as public places. We cannot overlook the fact that criminals have become bolder. Their acts of gun violence bolder. And it can erupt even in the presence of law enforcement officers. The Birmingham Police Department is committed and will continue to work tirelessly to remove guns off the street and from those who intend to do harm within the community and commit ruthless acts of violence. We are committed. So far this year, we've taken over 800 guns off the street in the city of Birmingham. Last year, 2,570 guns were taken off the street. Today, those efforts will be intensified through collaborative partnerships that stand before you today. But I want to make something clear. We can't do this alone. None of us can do this alone. We need action from the community. We need every person in the community to help us build a safer, more vibrant Birmingham, as well as Jefferson County. It takes all of us, every one of us standing here and everyone in the community. It takes all of us. Our goal is to combat gun violence through a comprehensive approach of police operations, investigations with enhanced technology. And we stand here today as strong partners, but we need your partnership. We stand here as a strong community of law enforcement, but we need community, a strong community to work with us to bring incidents of violence to a close. These partnerships will serve as restored commitment of information sharing that will help build stronger, safer communities, but we still can't do that without the commitment from the community and without your involvement, without your action. And so we need you in the community to step up. Thank you. Sheriff Pepper?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheriff Mark Petway. Thank you, Mayor Woodfin, for this opportunity, and Chief Smith. We also acknowledge our DA, Danny Carr, a U.S. Attorney, Prem Escalon, and Councilman Hunter Williams. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office always stand ready to prevent violent crimes or to apprehend those who commit violent crimes. When we think about all those families who have lost loved ones due to gun violence, our hearts grieve with them. We're talking about someone's mother, someone's father, someone's child. We want to do everything we can to prevent these violent acts from happening. Usually when something happens, somebody somewhere has information about it. Somebody knows something. If we want violent crimes to stop, we have to support law enforcement and share information about criminals. We want to identify these people and groups who are doing the shooting. We want our citizens to be engaged and to call law enforcement before a domestic situation can turn violent. Don't be afraid to call. If we can get there, perhaps our presence can prevent things from getting worse. We're committed to turning these current crime trends around. We are standing here today to say, let's stand together. Let's stand up for our communities. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Danny Carr, District Attorney of Jefferson County. There's a saying that it's better to light a candle than to stumble around in the dark. And there's been a lot of darkness in our communities due to gun violence. There's been a lot of sadness and a lot of hopelessness. But today, with the formation of this collaborative effort, we want to symbolize that light. And I want to take a moment for everyone who is watching this. I want this light to serve as the due process that's required to you as it relates to putting people on notice. That if you have a gun and you shouldn't have that gun, there are going to be consequences. If you indiscriminately fire that gun and you continue to perpetuate the violence in our communities, there's going to be consequences. And I want to give you a term. There's also a part of that light I just spoke about. And that term is called consecutive. What does consecutive mean? Consecutive means that not only would you be punished in state court by the office of the district attorney, but after that sentence is served, in agreement with my friend who is the U.S. attorney, we will seek to have you punished in federal court as well. That means that you will be serving 2 sentences for one event. The violence has to stop. If you decide to carry a gun illegally in Jefferson County, there'll be consequences. Today, this partnership represents that light to take out the darkness in our communities. And I want to thank everyone that's here, all the people you see behind me, the mayor, the chief, the sheriff, our U.S. attorney, our Councilman Hunter Williams, and everybody that's watching this. But there's one thing that we have to have in addition to everything I just said in order to make this happen, and that is information. My pastor always say that you have to carry your corner, and I'm asking you to carry your corner as well to help our men and women in uniform who are on the street trying to keep our community safe. To provide that information, we We need to take people to court and hold them accountable. All of us have to work together, and I know we will, because I have faith in this community, and I have faith in this group. God bless you all. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being with us today. As we know, too many people in Birmingham and Jefferson County are being killed and injured due to senseless violent crime. Too many families are suffering from the loss of a loved one stolen from them due to violence. While there's never an acceptable rate of homicide, violence, or fear within our community, we know there is too much today in Birmingham. Too many deaths, too many gunshots, too much domestic violence, and too much fear. Protecting the Northern District of Alabama from violent crime is the top priority of my office. The United States Attorney's Office and our federal law enforcement partners, ATF, DEA, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals, stand united with our Birmingham and Jefferson County partners to combat violent crime. We share Mayor Woodfin and Councilor Williams' commitment to securing public safety for all of our communities. And I especially want to commend the work that Chief Smith, Sheriff Petway, and District Attorney Carr are doing in Birmingham and Jefferson County to drive down violent crime. We're fortunate to have their leadership in our city and our county, and I'm honored to stand with them today. I look forward to working with them shoulder to shoulder as we drive down violent crime in Birmingham. My office and our federal law enforcement partners will offer every tool that we have available to help rein in the violence. The level of violence in Birmingham is intolerable, and the fear of violence among our families and neighborhoods is unsustainable. Our communities deserve peace, and our children deserve a safe place to grow up. The United States Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice will fully support the City of Birmingham in making our communities and families safe from violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam U.S. Attorney. As the community knows, like most major American cities, we have seen an uptick in gun violence this year. We know that this is attributable to a small group of people retaliating between each other. These cowards seemingly never hit their intended target, but as they senselessly shoot into crowds of people in the vicinity of their target or a vehicle they believe their target to be in, they always hit innocent bystanders, people barbecuing, celebrating Easter, people on the job working, or a 5-year-old child in Patton Park. I truly believe that there should be equity and safety in this city. What I mean by that is a child growing up in the most affluent zip code deserves the same expectation to safety as a child growing up in the least affluent zip code. In this country and in this city, never should a young boy or girl fear being shot or killed by a stray bullet meant for somebody else. The leadership of the city of Birmingham, as well as the men and women who spoke before me, will not tolerate these senseless acts, as they almost emulate domestic terrorism in our city, holding our residents hostage in their own neighborhoods. We all know the answer to crime is education and economic opportunity, which is why I'm thankful that the people represented here today have programs like the Sheriff's Office reentry programs in the Jefferson County Jail, District Attorney Danny Carr's truancy program, focusing on intervening when our youth are not attending school, as well as Mayor Randall Woodfin's Birmingham Promise, providing last dollar scholarships for every graduating senior in the city of Birmingham, ensuring our kids will have the ability to attend a 2-year or 4-year institution regardless of their ability to pay. While these are all long-term solutions to curbing violence, we will not allow our city in the short term to be held hostage by a small group who refuse to put down guns. That is why the leadership of the city of Birmingham, including not only the city council and the mayor, but also Chief Smith and his command staff, are all on the same page with our state, county, and federal partners. There is a perception with some members of our community that if you're a felon in possession of a firearm and you commit a crime and get caught, you will be able to be prosecuted under state statutes and serve a minimal amount of time in the State Department of Corrections. We want to be explicitly clear today. No matter what the perception has been, those opportunities no longer exist for those who commit violence and terrorize our city. This group is collectively teaming up to make sure that those who continuously are involved in violent acts with firearms will be held accountable to the fullest extent of not only Alabama state law, but also the federal system. I'm grateful for the spirit of cooperation and dedication of the organizations represented here today. We are a united team with vast resources and capabilities, from enforcement to prosecution, and we will work as a cohesive team in tackling gun violence in our city. Many times it can be easy for organizations to work in silos, as there are plenty of cases and issues for each of our organizations to face on a day-to-day basis. But when we work as a cohesive team, there is no individual or group that can compete with us. We will make sure that those who commit violent crime in our city will be outmanned, out-resourced, and outworked to ensure a safer Birmingham, to ensure that our residents have the opportunity to safely work and play and raise a family in this city. I would like to again thank my colleagues on the Public Safety Committee, as well as the City Council, as well as everybody we've heard from here today, including Chief Smith and the men and women of Birmingham Police Department, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office led by Sheriff Petway, Jefferson County District Attorney's Office led by Danny Carr, U.S. Attorney's Office led by Madam Prim, as well as Mayor Randall Woodfin, who has spearheaded this effort. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one last note before we turn it back over to Rick for any questions you may have. This is a critical time in our community, and I want to acknowledge that the majority of the citizens of Birmingham are law-abiding citizens, and you do the right thing to take care of your family. And we cannot let a small group of people who are hell-bent on destroying themselves and or hurting others rule and dictate the day. So I want you to feel empowered, one. The other thing I would like to encourage parents, mothers, fathers, grandparents, before your child walks out of that home, that's an older teenager, say the ages of 17 and 18, know what they're getting into. Check their book bag, check their car, check under their bed, make sure they don't walk out of your home with a gun or come back inside your home with one. To the OGs, I mean, sometimes you got to speak plain language. I hope y'all can talk directly to the youngins because y'all got our attention now. You have a unified effort that has everyone's attention, and we will commit resources to make sure we can get these violent people off the streets. So with that, I turn it back over to Rick Journey.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I believe the first one who joined the line was Erica Wright with Birmingham Times. Erica, do you have a question at this moment? Go ahead.
So I would like to remind everybody that democracy is a participatory sport. It's never meant for you all to elect the mayor, elect the council, put the 10 of us in the boat and think we are only responsible for solving every issue in the community. It takes a collective approach. It takes our neighborhood officers. It takes our citizens. It takes organizations and nonprofits and for-profits and churches. It takes all of us to solve and address any issue. The same with the police. The majority of time what happens in the community is our police respond to crime and or know who some of the actors are. But I've never seen some of these things. The majority of these things are not committed in front of police. And so, but they're not committed in isolation either. Our citizens are aware of who and when this is happening. And so on one hand, you have this no snitching culture that we try to tackle every day. But on the other hand, I think it's important, I've talked to everyone behind me about this, there is a small group of citizens who want to come forward, but are afraid to come forward. And we need to find some resources. I think a lot of those resources, we will probably have to reach out to the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington about a holistic program, witness protection program, even if a case is not a federal case, because people are scared of retaliation. So it's not necessarily a matter of us not doing enough. We need the citizens to help us address these issues. Police cannot solve these issues alone. And so in that regard, the last point I will make, because this question was about our neighborhood officers, we need our neighborhood officers to join us in encouraging citizens in your neighborhoods on every block to become and participate in our neighborhood block watch programs, to be the additional eyes and ears for our police. We're not asking you to be Superman or Superwoman. We're not asking you to intervene in a crime, but there are ways that you can learn if something is out of whack in your block and report that information to us so we can address it faster and or solve that issue.
Carol Robinson, AL.com. Do you have a question?
I do. Good morning. Mayor, this question is for you. Back in 2018, we had the Public Safety Task Force, which also was a joint effort between all county and federal partners. How is what you're talking about different than that, and is that still in play?
Well, Carol, that is no longer in play to the second half of your question. To the first part of your question, how is this different? I have not, this coordination you see here has some intentional design around identifying who these people are and putting a concentrated effort on making sure whatever they're into, we break up. If there's neighborhood feud, is there some type of beef between certain groups of people on this side of town or that side of town or in this area or that area, that we have we put our resources together to identify these people and rid the problem for whatever they have going between them. That is what this is about. I have spoken to the team behind me. Rick may not like this, but I think it's important that we provide you updates, continued updates on the number of guns we've taken off the streets, and if we're making arrests towards these things, to provide that information to keep the public and the media updated on our efforts.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Carol. I believe Sheila Smoot, Summit Media, is on the line. Sheila?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. My question, for whoever can answer it, is this. I want to know numbers. I want to know what's the demographic of those committing the crimes. Are they technically 25 and under? Are they teenagers mainly? Are they black male or female? And also, I was writing in, like Erica, Birmingham Times. I've talked to officers, criminal defense attorneys. Actually, I was in Inslee just writing last night, and I saw a bunch of kids out staring me to death, and I was scared to stop at any exit to get gas. And I'm pretty good at doing that. You know, it doesn't bother me, but what bothers me, I see too many kids out at night. I intentionally went out to Inslee last night.
Sheila, yeah, Sheila.
I'd like to know about the numbers and the curfew, if it's being enforced, because I do think that helps, and I want to know pretty much numbers, and if you're working with the educational system at an early age.
Hey, let me try to break that down, Sheila. So I think they were asking about any kind of demographics or numbers. Can anybody talk to that at this time, or?
No, we can get the number she's asking for later. She's asking for a lot of.
Okay, so Sheila, we can get those numbers for you, and we will follow up with you on those numbers.
Give me that later, I'll get it right now.
And I think the last question was curfew. Yeah. Sheila, please mute. I'm getting a lot of noise in the background.
The last question was about a curfew, and it makes me think about, you know, we've set curfew in some of our public parks, our destination parks, such as Patton Park. We've set curfews in some of our destination parks, such as Patton Park and George Ward Park and East Lake Park. But the truth is, I did that with hesitation, and I said I did it. Truthfully, the park board made that decision, but I had some hesitation on supporting that decision for the following reason. I always want to speak to the emotion in the community I stated earlier, there's genuine sadness and anger in the community and concern. And if I'm very honest, there is some fear as well. But we can't let a handful of people dictate how we should move about in this community. I think in addition to that, we should love on our children more. I don't think we should put all teenagers on timeout in the form of a curfew. That's just not cool. What we gotta do as adults is lean in harder and acknowledge and pretty much know what's happening with our own children. These are our children. As adults, we should know their movement. And if it's out of line, and if you need help, if you need additional resources, and you don't want those additional resources to be the police knocking on your door and or arresting your son or daughter, reach out to us, let us know so we can provide those resources to you.
Magdala with WVTM. Magdala, do you have a question?
I do. I also have questions about statistics. If you guys gather all of that, if you could send that to me as well. This question, I think can go to the police chief. I know you guys are talking a lot about illegal guns being out on the streets. I was wondering, one, where are these guns coming from? What patterns are the officers or investigators seeing when they're confiscating and taking away these guns? And I don't know if I can spit out two other questions. This is for, I think the state attorney, having her here, what kind of message do you want to put out there? Having the state attorney's office present in this partnership. And then as well, the mayor, you talked about using federal money from using that to battle gun violence. What does that look like when it comes to the plan with using the money that we're getting from DC? So, What does the plan look like, and how much of it will be used to handle this issue?
All right, Magdala, thank you. Chief, yeah, I know. I think Chief Smith has one. Everybody has one to work with here.
Okay, I'll try to answer this systematically. Most of the guns that we're seeing, they're coming in from all different sources. We're finding guns from a number of areas. One of the major problems that we have is people storing their guns in their vehicles at night. This, by far, is the number one problem that we have. As they store their guns in vehicles at night, we end up having burglary from vehicles, which places more guns back out on the street. And it starts the wholesale process of trying to recover before another crime is committed.
U.S. Attorney Escalon?
I think I can remember all the questions.
Well, I think it was that one particular for you.
I think that what we're thinking is important here is to do a collaborative approach and to have everybody together. And that's why my office is here. There are things that we can do. We can be a force multiplier. I told Chief, he has the force, but sometimes our agencies can be a force multiplier. And so we're bringing all of our resources to bear, whether that's investigatory, intelligence-based, or if it is prosecutorial. So from my office, we want to look and work with the district attorney's office to see when there are cases that can be taken federally, when that's appropriate. Sometimes those sentences can be longer, and sometimes it is quicker to go through the federal route. And so we want to be able to use those resources to bear as well. I think the idea is, as the mayor said, to be strategic in our enforcement, to look at who's driving the violent crime, who are the trigger pullers, who's really driving up violent crime in the area, and then to work together with the chief, supporting him, and with the sheriff and their officers to find the best way to get that person off the street, and be it the federal system or the state system. Does that answer?
Thank you.
What was Magdala?
Magdala, what was your question for the mayor? I'm sorry.
Oh,
How to use your
it was
federal
money.
money.
Yeah.
I thought I heard it say that
I got it.
the city will be using parts of the federal money.
Yes,
to
we got it.
Yeah.
He's got it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So while this public statement today is 100% about enforcement, I do want to acknowledge that we do believe as an administration in three lanes of addressing crime: prevention measures, enforcement measures, and reentry measures. What we're talking about with the $148 million related to the CARES funding we received from the federal government, we want to look at programs for enhanced programs that we've already been engaging in on the prevention reentry side. Today, we do not have a dollar amount. However, that is what this is about, related to that money, not from an enforcement standpoint.
Okay, WBHM, I know is on the line. We're trying to make sure we got those who identified themselves. WBHM, are you on the line? Do you have a question?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rick. This is for the mayor. Mayor Wilson, I know that you recently made an Instagram post about the confiscation of guns and that being an effort that you've made over the last couple of years. And I know that you guys have also mentioned data. Is there any numbers to suggest that there's a direct correlation between the guns that are being confiscated and crime decreasing at all? I mean, I know we've seen a recent uptick, but I mean, would there have been more violence if these guns were not confiscated? Are there any numbers to prove that?
I don't necessarily have the numbers in front of me to prove that. I do believe if the amount of guns taken off the street last year, well over 2,000, and just in the first quarter plus 1 month of this year, in almost completion April, second quarter, I'm sorry. And so in the 4 months of 21, the chief spoke earlier, right at 800 plus guns taken off the street. We, without a doubt, believe there would have been more violence on our streets, gun violence that is, if the BPD have had these efforts. Let me also say this though, it's not part of your question, but this is a good time to state this. You asked about correlation. Here's the correlation I believe, this is why having witnesses and the community's help is important. District Attorney Carr talked about a process here. When a witness comes forward, the first people they speak to is Birmingham police. And the next person they speak to is the district attorney or one of the attorneys in the district attorney's office. But then there's a third group of people they have to speak to, and that is being an actual witness in a jury box in front of 12 people that can take up to 1 or 2 years. The correlation is the more witnesses we can have come forward, provide detail and information on something they know, something they saw, and we actually not only make an arrest but convict people, crime will decrease. If you have people out here who shoot people and believe they can get away with it, then outside of us catching them in the act, they will believe they can continue to shoot because they think they can get away with it. And so I'm overstressing the point of community engagement here, that if you have seen something and if you are afraid to come forward, please let us know so we can provide some type of resources for you so you can feel protected and go through this process of not only sharing this information with us, but also sharing this information with the DA or the U.S. Attorney, but also being in front of a jury so we can convict this person of this crime and get them off our streets.
We've been going, just to let everybody know, we've been going about 45 minutes here. I want to see if there's anybody who's on the line who we haven't called on that would like a question. Yes, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Go ahead with your question.
Very good. Yeah, we just wanted to ask about the officer involved shooting from yesterday. Any new details? We're just getting information from the family saying that officer shot first.
Okay, so yesterday there was an officer involved shooting. During that time, we were conducting a narcotics search warrant at the location in Fairfield. Once we arrived at that location, our officers from the Tactical Operations Precinct as well as the Narcotics Precinct or Narcotics Unit formulated a plan. They arrived on scene. Once they approached the location, there was one individual sitting on the front porch. He stood up and he fired a round at our officers, and they returned fire upon him. We have tactical medics there with our Tactical Operations Precinct officers. They rendered aid to him, as well as they summoned the fire department who transported him to UAB Hospital. So if someone stated that this individual did not fire, I can tell you that it's not accurate. If they tell you that there was not a gun at the scene that was not recovered by all our officers, I can tell you that is not accurate. And if they said that our officers fired upon him initially, that is not accurate. There is an ongoing investigation being conducted by Aaliyah, and we expect to hear more information from them.
All right, everybody, I think we've gotten everybody. One last question, then we're gonna wrap up. Is there any final follow-up question from anybody on the line?
I got a question, and this is Sheila Fluke. What is working? Chief Patrick Smith, Sheriff, what is working? I want some good news. What is working? Something's gotta be working. And also Danny Carr, repeat offenders. Are these people the same people committing crimes?
Hey, Sheila, let me let the reporters on, because you probably didn't see it. The district attorney had to go to, had to leave to go to court, and the sheriff had another appointment, so they had to leave a little longer. But,
Can you say what is working? That's all.
sure.
Well, I can tell you that every unit, every officer, and every person behind me is working. They're working every single day of the week. Earlier, they asked about the guns that have been taken off the street. Just last week, we took 86 guns off the street. This past year, we took 2,570. The year before that, it was over 2,200 guns taken off the street. So as you can see, the numbers are escalating, but our officers are doing an outstanding job of removing these illegal and stolen guns from the street. More importantly, we can't even quantify the number of crimes that would have been committed if these guns were not removed. And for the most part, most of them have been removed without incident. They've been removed safely without injury or harm to pretty much anyone for the most part, except for this one incident we had on yesterday.
Chief, thank you, and that's going to wrap up our news conference today. Thank you all for being part of this. For those who had asked for some data, I will get with the police department's communications team and see if we can pull together some of the data that was requested. Thank you all for being with us today.